Good evening and welcome everyone, dear teachers, students, and speaker of the day, Miss Nayar Vinita Jayakumar. Dear students, I feel privileged to announce Learn from Home webinar series for a higher level English medium school organized by MNET with the technical support of INET Connect, featuring speakers like Dr. Manjushri Sardesh Pandey, the chairperson of the Board of Studies, Balbharti Pune, Mr. Nadeem Khan, academic coordinator of Chess, Ra Aurangabad, and Board of Studies member, Balbharti Pune, Mr. Miss Renita Augustine, State Resource Person of Chess Ra Aurangabad, Miss Vinita Nair. She is the resource person of English New Syllabus and also the author of several academic and non-academic books. Mrs. Sylvia Francis, State Resource Person of Chess Ra Aurangabad. Miss Avinash Rade. Now, Learn from Home webinar series started from the 4th of August 2020 and it's going to continue till 21st of August, that is today. This series would provide a wonderful platform to know and understand your English activity sheet. I request all our participants to be a part of this series that would guide you to deal your English activity sheet according to the state board norms and criteria. And today we have with us Miss Nayar Vinita Jayakumar, BA, MA. She is an English and history teacher with 25 years of teaching experience. She's a recipient of 2 awards for excellence in education. She has authored several books on English grammar and creative writing, apart from non-academic books. Her articles have been published in Lok Satta, News House, and other publications. She was invited by the World Education Fellowship, an international organization, to present a paper on the role of values in education. She has been the resource person for English when the new syllabus was introduced in class 9. Without wasting much time, let me discuss the topic that Mrs. Vinita Nair is going to take. Today, she is going to take question number 7B, that is develop a story and narrate an experience. So, over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, I thank Mumbai Network of English Teachers for this huge opportunity to interact with so many of you students and teachers. Special thanks to Nadeem Khan sir and Madam Renu Dotre, convener MNET, for providing me this platform. Without taking much of your time, I will directly go to the topic of the day, which is story writing and narrating an incident. I'll be sharing with you various tips and techniques, and I hope at the end of this session you will have learned some tips and techniques to enhance your writing skills. Let me get started with a beautiful story which I learned when I think I was in 9th or 10th standard. It was a beautiful short story written by O. Henry after 20 years. O. Henry's short story, After 20 Years, is a masterpiece. It narrates the story of the reunion of 2 childhood friends, Jimmy Wells and Bob. They made a pact to meet after 20 years when they last meet each other. They keep their word.
Vinita, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you make it a slideshow?
Yeah, I will. Okay, so I was just telling you that this story is After 20 Years, written by prolific author O. Henry. O. Henry's short story, After 20 Years, remember, is a beautiful masterpiece which narrates the story of the reunion of 2 childhood friends, Jimmy Wells and Bob. They had made a pact to meet after 20 years when they last met each other. They keep their word. Jimmy had become a policeman, while Bob, now known as Silky Bob, had turned into a criminal. They're meeting after 20 years, and what happens at the meeting and how the events unfold is what the story is all about. The fact that I learned this story when I was in 9th standard and I still remember it speaks volumes about the impact a story can have on us. I would like to share with you the introduction and conclusion of this very short story written by O. Henry. This is the introduction. This is how O. Henry has opened the story. He said, the cop moved along the street, looking strong and important. This was the way he always moved. He was not thinking of how he looked. There were few people on the street to see him. It was only about 10 at night, but it was cold. There was a wind with a little rain in it. He stopped at doors. He walked along, trying each door to be sure that it was closed for the night. Now and then, he turned and looked up and down the street. He was a fine looking cop, watchful, guarding the peace. People in this part of the city went home early. Now and then, you might see the lights of a shop or of a small restaurant. And most of the doors belonged to business places that had been closed hours ago. Then the cop suddenly slowed his walk. Near the door of a darkened shop, a man was standing. As the cop walked toward him, the man spoke quickly. "It's all right, officer," he said. "I'm waiting for a friend. 20 years ago, we agreed to meet here tonight. It sounds strange to you, doesn't it? I will explain if you want to be sure that everything is all right." Now we come to the conclusion of this story. All right. At the corner stood a shop bright with electric lights. When they came near, each turned to look at each other's face. The man from the west stopped suddenly and pulled his arms away. "You're not Jimmy Wells," he said. 20 years is a long time, but not enough to change the shape of a man's nose. "It sometimes changes a good man into a bad one," said the tall man. "You have been under arrest for 10 minutes, Bob. Chicago cops thought you might be coming to New York. They told us to watch for you. Are you coming with me quietly? That's wise. But first, here is something I was asked to give you. You may read it here at the window. It is from a cop named Wells." The man from the west opened the little piece of paper. His hand began to shake a little as he read. Bob, I was Bob, I was at the place on time. Saw the face of the man wanted by Chicago cops. I didn't want to arrest you myself. So I went and got another cop and sent him to do the job, Jimmy. Students, I have just shared the introduction and conclusion of this beautiful story with you, but I'm sure you got the idea. Now, why did I share this with you? I shared it in the introduction. Like, just look at the setting and, the use of imagery. He stopped at the doors. He walked along, trying each door to be sure that it was closed for the night. When you read this line, didn't these lines come alive in your mind? That is the power of the right choice of words. All right. And it was only about 10 at night, but it was cold. Didn't you feel that coolness when you were reading that? As the cop walked toward him, the man spoke quickly. It is an impulsive way. When somebody walks towards you, you speak quickly and explain yourself. Look at the beauty of the lines here. And look at the conclusion. Look at the conclusion where, everything is taken to a logical conclusion. And look at it sometimes changes a good man into a bad one. Look at that line. There is so much of depth in, what that line conveys, how time can change people. So what I'm trying to illustrate through this example is that whenever you write a story, there has to be a takeaway. There has to be a suspense. There has to be, an amazing ending. And so my humble request to you again is, after the session is over, kindly Google, After 20 Years by O. Henry and read the story. And you will understand how beautiful that story is and why, as students of English, you must read such stories. Now, to begin with, what is a story? Now, remember, a story or a tale is a narration of an incident or an event. It may be real, it may not be real, it could be imaginary. In such a way that, there is a takeaway, an experience, or a lesson to learn. Otherwise, why should I waste my time reading something which you have written if there is no takeaway for me, if there's nothing to learn in it? So remember, a good story aims to impart information, provide lifelike experiences, and also develop the right attitude and also create a point of view. Remember, right from the ancient times, stories have been powerful instruments to, develop values in us. Why do you think our grandparents tell us stories? Because they want to inculcate in us the right values and virtues. So it is extremely important that we develop, in the reader the interest by imparting some essential values which will help them to grow as an individual. And remember, every story has a narrator and every story has listeners too. So make it worthwhile for the listener. Put in a lot of effort into whatever you write. That's so important. Now, if you look at the question paper, you will have write a story or narrate an incident. Okay, now what are narrative essays? How will you narrate an incident? Remember, children, narrative essays narrate a vivid story or an incident, usually from one's point of view. If I'm narrating an incident, it will be from my point of view. It is usually written in first person. Always remember the first person. A narrative essay, again, applies all the elements of a story. Introduction will be there will be a body, conclusion, a good plot, character, setting, climax. All this comes together and they complete the narration of the incident. So it is very, very important to understand that there is a thin line which divides storytelling from narrative essay, and that is that narrative essays are usually our own perspective written in first person. But it is also like a story because it is a real incident which has already occurred. Now, when writers, accomplished writers, professional writers start writing, they usually, follow a 3-act structure, which is used in story narration. So now in a story narration, those who write novels also, they do this. What do? They divide the story into 3 parts. And what are the 3 parts? They are setup, confrontation, and the resolution. Now remember, the setup is the opening scene of your story, which gives a preview, which provides clarity to the reader regarding what is in store ahead in the story. So where is your story set up? Your story can be set up anywhere. It could be in a beautiful village. It could be in near a beautiful blue ocean. All right, it could be anywhere. But that opening scene will prepare the reader for what is in store for the reader. And every story will have some or the other confrontation. We are going to discuss all this in detail a little later, but just let me quickly take you through these terms. The confrontation or conflict are the tense moments in a story, and it is used to propel the narration forward. So now what happens is when you watch a film also, what do you see? A film is set in a beautiful city or a village, and then there are so many conflicts and confrontation. And then at the end of the story, what do you see? That all the, conflicts which are there, they are all resolved, and, sometimes they are left unresolved also. And finally, the story ends. So when you look at the story of O. Henry's After 20 Years, you see the setup. All right. It is on a deserted road. Then you see the confrontation in the last part and how it is resolved with the letter addressed to Bob, and how finally the story ends. The story is not having a happy ending. Remember, all the stories need not have, they happily lived ever after. No, you can have sad endings. You can have, humorous endings. It all depends upon the plot of your story. So always remember, whenever you are thinking of a story, think of three things. A, the setup. Where is your story set? What are the conflicts which you will be highlighting in your story? Talk about that. And eventually how all these conflicts are resolved or not resolved, that also you have to highlight. Okay, and if you know these 3 things and if you practice, with the passage of time, believe me, you will become a very good writer. Now there are 3 important aspects of story and narrative writing. That is rising action, falling action, and resolution. That part of the narration, which includes exposition, that is when you are exposing your characters and your setup to the readers, in which the narration takes the tension to its peak. Rising action is witnessed maximum in the climax. All right. So what is the climax? The ending, the end part of the story. Before the story is about to end, the climax, you will have to, again, use a lot of action and finally end the story. Okay. So that part of the narration, where, in the thief story, where he is stealing, he is coming back, he is keeping the money back, he is worried. That is rising action. Falling action is when finally they smile and they come in terms with the fact that yes, somebody has done something wrong, but life has to go on. That is the resolution also. The story, the conflicts are resolved, sometimes unresolved, as I told you, and finally the story ends. So, whenever you are writing anything, children, especially stories, what would be my area where there would be a lot of rising action, where the action is, at its all time high? When can I be a little calm? No need of hurrying up and no need of having a lot of action, falling action. And finally, you conclude your story. So, why I am, telling you all these things is, if you practice how to put, rising action in a paragraph, or how to be calm in one paragraph, falling action, how will you conclude? On a daily basis, if you even do parts of different stories and practice, that will also help you to excel. And remember, there is always uh, you know uh, ways to enhance your creativity. So the more you practice, you will explore different ways of writing creatively. I hope I'm clear to all of you. So remember, rising action, falling action, and resolution are important, whether you are narrating a story or narrating an incident. Now, whenever you're writing, a story, remember to begin with a beautiful title. Why? Because it will give the readers an idea of what the story is all about. Apart from that, just between you and me, there's one mark for title too. So obviously, all the writing skills you have to begin with a title. The same goes for the story also. So it could be the name of the character, an incident like after 20 years from the story, a proverb, hard work pays. If it is summing up the essence of your story, you can go ahead and give a proverb. That is number one. Start with a beautiful title. Have a clear idea of the plot before you start writing. Very often, what happens now, when we see the paper, we get so excited, we get started. Come, let's write, and then we will think along the way. Sometimes we lose track. See, you're given papers 10 minutes in advance. So you look at the title and what is given and keep. In creativity, there is something called incubation, where the idea is working in your subconscious. You're not thinking about the story, but it is there in the back of your mind. Then, when you come to that question, spend 2 minutes to have a clear idea of what you're going to write. Already the brain had started working at 10:50. So by the time at around 12:30 or 40, when you reach this last question, the ideas will have already been generated. All you have to do is to ensure that you put those ideas together, but have clarity. All right. You cannot embark on a journey without knowing, the route map. Same is the case with writing too. So please have a clear idea and ensure that there is a flow in your story. There has to be a proper sequence. How did this happen? The reader should not be left wondering. There has to be logical connections. And like I showed you in O. Henry's story, use a lot of descriptive words and imagery. Let the words come alive. Then conversations and dialogues, remember, they add beauty to your story. And use good dialogues. There has to be, some enriching dialogues. Use some proverbs, provided they are relevant. Just don't try to put in all this because teacher has told. It should gel with your story. Sometimes some quotations and proverbs will not fit into some stories. Don't use it. And the conclusion should take the reader by surprise. When we read O. Henry's story, we were surprised with the ending. Oh my God, the second person was not his friend. The first person was his friend. There is a surprise element. And there is a teary smile also when we come to the end of the story. First time when you read, there's a teary smile. That is O. Henry's style of writing. He leaves you happy. At the same time, he has the ability to leave you teary eyed. We are feeling sorry for Bob and Jimmy. After all, they were such good friends. Yes, so we are left teary eyed in the end. We are proud of Jimmy for, being true to his profession. We feel sorry for Bob too. When Bob's hands tremble, we are worried about his reaction. That is the power of writing. That's the way you should write. That is the way you should write. Okay, so again, to sum up whatever I told you once more, there are very many important elements which give life to a story. The plot, the events through which you have to take the reader. From the beginning to the end, you have to guide both the events and characters in a proper sequence. They have to flow in a proper way. Give characters strong qualities or traits so that each character has their own individuality. That is very important. Keep Help the characters come alive. Give them some finer nuances. Now when you read about Hari, so many aspects of his personality comes to the fore. We know this 15-year-old is doing a lot of criminal activities, but at the heart of his heart, he is good. And how did we come to that conclusion? Thanks to Ruskin Bond's choice of words. That's the way he has written the character of Hari. All right. The environment and setting, the place where all the action takes place. Get into the detail of the environment so that the reader can relate to the character and the place where he hails from. Now, when we read Ruskin Bond's story, most of it is set in Missouri, we feel. Why? Because that is the power of his narration. Without saying, you can say so many things through your stories. Communication of ideas, the characters, the way you frame your story, your grammar skills. Adapt a style which is unique. When someone reads your story, they should say, this is written by Rohan. They have to say this. Why? Because that should be your style. When you read a Ruskin Bond, it is a Ruskin Bond. When you read O. Henry, it is O. Henry. When you read any renowned author's work, you can immediately tell the name of the author without looking at who has written it, because they leave their stamp. So develop a style and identity of your own. All right. Dialogues. Please include, for effectiveness, the actual words spoken by the character. That will definitely take the story to another level. Great beginning, great ending. Start with a great introduction so that the interest of the reader is generated. You motivate him, and you insist that he should keep reading. He should keep going. Let there be surprises at every nook and corner. There has to be a logical conclusion. Leave the reader amazed. Leave the reader inspired. Very, very important. And every reader, remember, looks for a moral, a lesson in a story. Don't disappoint them. Okay, and it is very, very important to have a great beginning and a great ending and a great body. Everything has to be great about your writing. And I'm sure you all will be able to write well, because all of us have a writer in us. Only problem is, let me tell you, we don't practice. I understand there are time constraints and so many other issues, but find time for linguistic development. All the three languages. Read a lot, write a lot. Let your stress buster be reading. That will help. Read a lot of stories. So many stories are available online. Now, it's all about the first impression. I told you last time also, for those who attended, that how create that first impression, it all depends upon the unexpected beginning. Okay, it could be action packed, it could be slow paced, but it should be a unique beginning, as I told you earlier, which will encourage me into that journey of reading your ideas. Okay, set up a plot, I repeat, and as I told you earlier, be very clear about that plot, because that introduction and the plot should gel. So for that, when you are introducing your story, the plot has to be very clear in your mind. Okay, then you will develop your characters. Have a protagonist. Who is a protagonist? The main character of the story, and a few but powerful supporting characters. They are equally important. And then in your mind, you will choose the message or moral. Why? Because accordingly you will develop your writing. Have strong dialogues, I repeat, which are memorable. Have a proper setting. Now, Ruskin Bond's thief story came alive partly because of this setting. It begins, in a place, then it shifts to where the wrestling is going on, and then it shifts to the house. Then Hari goes out. Look at the different change of sets. If you're enacting it, we would need at least 3 sets, and create tension and conflict in the first paragraph itself so that it can keep the interest of the readers alive. That's so important. All right. Now you will say teacher saying bring the characters alive, bring the characters alive. How can we bring characters alive? What you can do is, as I told you earlier, give each character a specific body language. All right. A person who is a criminal but who walks with a limp, or the way he delivers the dialogue. A character could actually stammer while he talks. That will give him a unique style. All right. And when you read Thief Story, you actually know the thought process, what Hari is thinking. And why do we know that? Because it is included in the writing. So give the readers an insight into what your characters are thinking. Give a lot of emotions to the character. When you look at Anil, and when you look at Hari, or when you look at Jimmy, or when you look at any of these characters, you find that most of these people are emotional, and emotional people bring a lot to the story. When there are a lot of emotions, the story actually comes alive. What? You will ask me, teacher, what are emotions? Love, compassion, you know patriotism, these are all emotions. Courage. Okay, so that emotion has to be there in the character. And define the response of the characters in varied situations. Okay, how will the see now you said that the hands were shivering when he opened the letter. That was the response of the character. Add it in your writing and see how your writing comes alive. It is all about giving life to words. And to give life to words, the first step is giving life to the characters in the story. I'm sure you'll be able to do this because it is very easy. Even in lower classes, we've been preparing character sketch. Remember character sketch of the uh, characters in different stories. So what happens is we know how to read between the lines and go to their innate qualities and attributes. So when you write it, bring it in your writing. All right. I hope all this is helping you in your creative development. Now, setting, as I told you. So you must be wondering, teacher, how to bring setting alive. So first and foremost, the scene or the place where the story unfolds. As I told you, it could be anywhere. It could be on a desert. Yes. It could be on an island. It could be anywhere. But then when you're talking about a desert, talk about the environmental setting. Okay. Is it, and when is this story unfolding? The time? Is it evening? Talk about the sun setting. You don't have to mention it is evening. Talk about sun setting. I'll show you some examples later. Talk about the terrain. Okay. Talk about the temperature. Not actually, writing the statistics and details. In through your lines. Oh, it is so hot. So I know that you are in a place where the weather is hot. Information pertaining to plot and character also will have a bearing on the setting. Then the nature of character, places mentioned, flora, fauna, all that, remember it influences the setting. Okay, a person from a city will be a relatively, talkative person. Not all the time, it is not necessary, but if you are giving that character that particular feature. Okay, then geographical factors influencing the story. For example, if it is set on a hill station, how in the evening it becomes very cold, all those geographical factors can be subtly introduced. Without mentioning any of this, your story should have all of this. So, how will we do that, teacher? Start practicing. Simple. All right. Now coming to paragraph setting. Very often we get confused. Always the question is, teacher, how many paragraphs? Minimum 3 paragraphs. Introduction, body, and conclusion. All right. For 100 words, that should be good enough. So now when do we start a paragraph? That is a big question. We go on writing, never ending saga. But remember, children, you have to start a new paragraph for introduction, body, and conclusion. And if you are introducing a new character, start a new paragraph. A new event or a new concept, start a new paragraph. Change of scene from the marketplace to home, new paragraph. When you are introducing conversations and dialogues, new paragraph. A new paragraph introduces both the body and the conclusion of any composition. So always remember that. So always remember IBC, introduction, body, and conclusion. Very important. Now, how to enrich a paragraph, because I read a paragraph, there is no takeaway, nothing. How will I enrich it? So enter the main theme. Have a lot of good, beautiful assisting sentences. And whenever you're writing, now before writing at the practice level, read and research and include those ideas. You can use illustrations to prove your point, examples sometimes. And there has to be clarity. Use simple sentences, but clear sentences. And then all your ideas, just hold it together and conclude. Don't allow your story to fall apart. Hold it all together and, take it to that conclusion, end. That's very, very important. So that the paragraph looks rich and with a lot of substance. And that will add to the beauty of whatever you write. All right. Again, to recap, I'm recapping it again and again, because some of these concepts are very new to you. So I'm just reinforcing it because I have 50 minutes. So remember the important elements of a story are title, 1 mark, plot, character, introduction, conclusion. When it all comes together, you will get that 4 marks. You must be thinking teacher is so mark oriented. No, dear. Education, as I told you last time, has nothing to do with marks. How creative you are and what a good human being you are, that matters. And to be good, you have to express. And the best way to express, here it is, storytelling. So environment and setting also matters. Dialogues, communication of ideas, moral. You have to keep reminding yourself, like I'm reminding you again and again. You do this also. All right. So now, creativity is a circle. Like I showed you another picture last time. This is a different picture. So to develop your creativity, whether it is drawing, whether it is writing, whether it is composing a poem, or whether it is sculpting, you have to first imagine. In any creative action, first you have to imagine what you want to achieve in your creative process. Then you will start practicing. Then you will apply. Then most important is evaluate. You will evaluate your own work. You will remedy it. You will repeat it. Now, I was looking at my last time's video and I kept saying very important, very important, very important. I don't know for what I kept saying very important, maybe because I was really concerned that, you all should not go wrong. But then I realized today that I should not do that mistake here by going on telling you repeat is very important, imagine is very important. No. So you have to evaluate yourself. I have the habit, whenever I have to give a speech in school, I record and then I listen to it, and then I see if there are any, because I come from south, sometimes the accent comes in, which is it is natural. So then you can correct it. So evaluation is very important, whether you are writing, whether you are speaking, or whether you are doing anything. So whenever you write something, get it first at your level, evaluate it, and then pass it on to elders. All right. And after evaluation, please remedy it. It is very important to remedy your mistake. Otherwise, you will go on, doing the same mistake again and again. After that, you will repeat the process. You will imagine, practice, apply, evaluate, remedy, and repeat it. Is that clear, all of you? So it is very, very important to remedy your mistake. Yeah. Vedant has given me a thumbs up. Thank you, Vedant. And now, with examples, I will illustrate whatever I told you so far. How to make a beginning. A beautiful plot with lovely characters, lively, lovely, beautiful characters who are all lively and, active. That could be a great beginning. Then describe the setting. Use a lot of, describing words. I'm a big fan of describing words. A beautiful sight of branches swaying, birds chirping, the gurgling of the streams. When we use such words, these words come alive, in front of us, in front of the reader. Use a lot of descriptive words, but don't overdo it. Anything in excess is bad. All right. So calm down. You have to, but in moderation. You cannot say sometimes there are 4-5 adjectives used by poets. In that poem, it might look beautiful, but in prose, we should know what is moderation, when and how much to use. That is the beauty of creativity. How much and in which, how much is more also you should know. You should not exceed anything. Don't overdo anything. Okay. And then talk about the time. Early morning when the sun is taking a dip in the sea. Where? In the countryside where people live happily. What happened? Differences of opinion came up between people. And then in the end, conflicts resolved and people lived happily ever after. No, they didn't live happily ever after. That could also be your ending. People did not resolve their conflicts. They decided to take it ahead. That is how the serials in television work, no? Conflicts are never resolved. Why? Season 2. So, of course, we don't have season 2. So, we have to take our stories to logical conclusion. Our season 2 will be 11th and 12th standard exam. So, we have to take our stories to a logical conclusion. And whenever you sit down to write, na children, remember there are various steps which you have to, you know, compulsorily follow. First and foremost is brainstorm for creative ideas. As I told you last time, for those who attended, that brainstorming is allowing all the ideas to come to you. Come, let all the ideas come. There will be no organization in your thoughts. It will all come. And then what you will do? Then you will filter what is relevant and bid adieu to what is irrelevant. You will retain only what is required. Okay. So when I was making this PowerPoint, so many ideas, and then eventually I had to filter it down because I cannot go on and on. It will get a little boring. And then second thing is, when you start writing, students, please don't lose track of what you are writing about. And again, I repeat, keep a track of bringing alive your characters through your words. Keep alive your setting. Okay. And again, provide clarity. I'm just summing up all that which I told you. Provide clarity. Keep the introduction, body, conclusion alive with conflict, mystery, adventure, twist, turn. Okay. So that the reader is always in a state of excitement that something is happening in the story. And then take a story to a grand climax and end the story and provide title on top. Moral, we won't give separately in 10th standard. Up to 8th and 9th standard, we encourage people to write, students to write moral separately. What you will do, your moral, remember, will be camouflaged in your narration. The moral is there for those who read it with attention. All right. So they will understand it. Okay. So now this is something which I have developed for my students. Remember, please remember, you are not supposed to use this format for exam. I've written it a note. You may use this format to plan only the rough draft of your story. It is called a story planner. So whenever you sit down to write a story, what will you do? First, you will think of the title. Then you will say, who are the key characters in my story? Give them names. Then where will my story be set? Put it under the setting here. All right. And then what is the type of your story? Is it going to be a humorous story? Is it going to be a sad story? Is it going to be, a story filled with optimism? Decide. Then where and when where the story unfolds, the time and place. Then how will you start the introduction? What are the descriptive words that you're going to, use? Enlist them. Enlist them in your rough sheet. And then what are the events which you're planning to, introduce? What are the events and when will it unfold? What are the conflicts and how will the conflicts come to an end in points? You can jot down all this in the story planner. And after that, when you actually get down to writing, refer to the story planner, start writing. Then after you finish writing, compare it with your story planner. See if there are any gaps left, fill it, and a beautiful story will be ready. But you know what I do whenever I have to write something, na, I go and read something. I'm supposed to be writing, but I'm busy reading. Why? Because when you read, it actually helps you to think better. So whenever you have to write anything, read something similar, not to copy. Okay, as an author, if I copy, I'll go to jail for copyright violation. You're not supposed to copy other people's work and pass it off as your own. Okay, that is not allowed. But then what I'm talking about is getting influenced by different ideas and expressing it in your own words. That is very important. And the more you read, the richer you are in terms of ideas, and then you will be able to express it in a more better manner. There will be substance. So again, going back to business, I shouldn't be talking about marks at all when I talk about creative writing, but still you should know. If you begin with a good introduction, you will get 1 mark. Grammar, vocabulary, and punctuation, another 1 mark. How relevant the points are, there again 1 mark. The flow, as I've been telling you, the relevance of the points, and then the narration is flowing and then going to a beautiful conclusion, you will get 4 marks, sometimes 5, because I heard somebody got 100 out of 100 in English too. So yeah, if you're very good, who are we to take away marks? Okay, now again, whatever we learned so far, now I want you to go through this introduction of the thief story, and see how everything what we discussed, what teacher told you, is included in this introduction. I was still a thief when I met Anil, and though only 15, I was an experienced and fairly successful hand. Anil was watching a wrestling match when I approached him. He was about 25, a tall, lean fellow, and he looked easygoing, kind, and simple enough for my purpose. I hadn't had much luck of late and thought I might be able to get into the young man's confidence. You look a bit of wrestler yourself, I said. A little flattery helps in making friends. So do you, he replied, which put me off for a moment because at that time I was rather thin. Well, I said modestly, I do wrestle a bit. What's your name? Hari Singh? I lied. I took a new name every month. That kept me ahead of police and my former employers. Look at this introduction by Ruskin Bond. Hats off to you, sir. How beautifully has he written this? Yes, in first person narration. I told you, the narrator here is not Ruskin Bond. Huh? Don't confuse narrator to the author. We'll be coming to that when we discuss glossary of terms. So he was still a thief when he met Anil. Both the characters are introduced. Okay, experienced and fairly successful hand. Look at the descriptive word used. Tall, lean fellow. Look at a little flattery helps in making friends. A proverb is introduced without making it obvious that you're talking. You're introducing a proverb. All right. I said modestly. Instead of saying I replied, I said modestly. So my attitude also comes through, and the character also comes through with the use of just one word, modestly. All right. And I took a new name every month. This he is telling the readers. It immediately tells us that he is a criminal. Look at it. Without telling anything, it has spoken so much. That should be the power of writing. Then he concludes, I awoke late next morning to find that Anil had already made the tea. He stretched out his hand towards me. There was a 15 rupee note between his fingers. My heart sank. I thought I had been discovered. I made some money yesterday, he explained. Now you will be paid regularly. My spirits rose. But when I took the note, I saw it was still wet from the night's rain. Today we will start writing sentences, he said. He knew, but neither his lips nor his eyes showed anything. I smiled at Anil in my most appealing way, and the smile came by itself without any effort. And the story ends. Beautiful story comes to an end. So much of values imparted. And look at the beauty. My spirits rose, my heart sank. See the gamut of emotions experienced by the character, so beautifully expressed by Ruskin Bond. Yes, and when he's saying that I thought I had been discovered. For a moment, we are also worried when we are reading it the first time. Oh my God, will he get caught? And look at the beautiful ending, and the smile came by itself without any effort. Yes, there is no confrontation, and there is no excitement, but a beautiful end to a beautiful story, and it has conveyed everything it wanted to. That should be the beauty of your writing. And there should always be a moral, a takeaway from your story. When you read that story, the thief story, I'm using this as an example because you're familiar with this story. The moral of the story, written by Ruskin Bond, named The Thief Story, is that human values and relations are important in life, and it can change a person, change him for good. The message in The Thief Story is not to betray the trust reposed on you by a person. Once the trust of a person is lost, remember children, everything is lost. And Ruskin Bond, through the story, imparts the same message so effortlessly. Kindness touches hearts and brings about a change even in the worst person. This is seen in the fact that Hari Singh the thief, despite stealing and running away from Anil, decides to come back because he cannot bear the thought that Anil would feel bad that he was cheated by a person in whom he had placed so much trust. Goodness and kindness has the power to radiate and change the world. And all these things, if I would tell you, be kind, huh? Be good to others. Huh? If you see something wrong in that person, forgive him. Would you understand it? No. But when I'm narrating it through this story, isn't it making so much sense to you? That, children, is the power of storytelling. And that is why this is an art which each one of us should develop. And as students of English, as lovers of good literature, we must all write. All of us should write. Now, remember, when we talk about stories, you will find that, even in the course of my discussion, we came across many different terms. So let us understand, and it will also be, I thought, a good recap for you. Character. Now, characters are persons, animals, or figures which are included in the story. Okay, so every story will have more than one character. Sometimes just a character also possible. Then narrator, as I told you, the one who narrates the story. The narrator may not be one of the narrator may need not be the author. He may be one of the characters in the story. So in the thief story, I just showed you how the narrator is not Ruskin Bond, but still there is a narrator. Then complication, any barrier or obstacle which increases tension and brings about conflict in a story, that is equally important. Then description in stories. You should make a list of all these words, and whenever you write, you have to do a check. Is this there? Is this there? Is this there? That is very important. Descriptive words and imagery used for characters, setting, and all the actions. Remember, it will bring the story alive. Then, of course, dialogue, the actual words spoken by the characters in direct or indirect speech. I prefer direct because it creates that emotion. But indirect also, once in a while you can introduce. Either ways, it works. Imagery, I repeat, use of word pictures and details and bringing it alive for your readers. Protagonist, the main character in the story around whom the story revolves. So every story should have a main character. Setting, we already discussed at length. The environment in which the story is set. The backdrop, it could be a quaint village, a city with all its hustle and bustle, or even a house. Structure, the framework which makes the story whole, exposition, complication, climax, resolution. So you will ask me, teacher, what is exposition? The introduction of the story wherein the author makes the character and the setting familiar to the reader, that is called exposition. And every story should have a theme. Okay, the central idea, the moral, the message, all that, whatever you are trying to communicate through the plot of the story is the theme. Theme basically is what is the central idea, what is the theme. All right, then you have to be very, very careful about the tone. The tone in a story is the attitude we adopt while writing, the attitude of the narrator or the perspective of the characters towards the events which unfolds. Mystery and secrecy is witnessed in the story after 20 years. So there is a secrecy till the end. There is an element of mystery when we read the lines. Try to generate it, try to create it through your writing. And believe me, it is not difficult. Then there has to be a suspense. Okay? Till that letter was opened, we were wondering what is the content of that letter. We were wondering what will happen in the end. That is suspense. Techniques used in the narration to keep the interest alive of the readers, filling the reader with anticipation of what could happen. All right. So that suspense motivates you to read ahead. That is very, very important. Have you seen serials? They will end the serial in such a way that we will go and watch that serial the next day also to see what happened. Why they keep that suspense hanging in the air? We have to take it to a logical conclusion because we have to complete our story. Then, of course, conflicts. drama, tension, which the characters face, natural calamities, conflicting thoughts, all that can come under conflict. It is not only maramari, it is not only the dispute. It could be the conflict which I go through. Hari was going through a lot of conflicting emotions within him. That is the conflict of the story. All right. And if when the actual policeman comes and if there was a confrontation, that would be a conflict. There was no conflict. He said, "Are you coming quietly?" And he was willing. Then climax. The moment when the action reaches the peak of the drama, conflict, the time for the characters to display their true nature, showcase their potential, and come in full force. Why? Because after climax, we have to end. So take it to that level. Okay, so these are different words which you should know and which should all be present. These are elements which should be present in a good story. When you are reading a good story, look out for these elements. When you are writing a good story, ensure that you include these elements. And you will be wondering why I should sit and judge other people's story. It helps. It helps us to enhance our own writing. I'll quickly revise how to narrate incident. So when you're narrating an incident, remember you are narrating an experience which could be real or imaginary. So describe the incident, the emotions you experienced, impact of that experience on you, lessons learned. There are so many things which you can include. All right. So where you can get started and include all the points that we discussed so far. That is very important. And then you will describe, talk about emotion, impact. It has to be like a story only, but first person narration done in a beautiful, creative manner. All right. So here is a narrative incident. Quick action saved a precious life. Write a story with the following ending. Throughout the journey, we were only hoping that all would be well. So before I begin reading this model, children, I want you to remember two things. One is if the beginning is given, you have to start with the same beginning. If you don't start with the same beginning, I can even give you a zero. When the ending is given, you have to end with these very words. You cannot tamper with these words and write it in your own words or you display your creativity in reframing the question. That is one mistake I have noticed students usually make. So be very careful about that. So this is narrating an incident. At first, I ignored the alarm. You know why I'm reading this out to you? Look at the detailing. It is not a great piece of writing, but a good narrative writing, good piece of narrative writing, which will get, which will help you to get. If you include all these details, you will get around 4 marks if there are no grammatical errors. So I am reading this out to you so that you know how much of detailing has to go into narrating an incident. At first, I ignored the alarm. It sounded like a fire alarm, such as the ones we were used to at the fire drill in our building. I had taken part in so many fire drills that when the real thing happened, I mistook it for the drill in the hospital where my dad was a patient. When I saw the matron running in excitedly shouting, "Fire!" the look on her face said it all. Being fairly well built myself, without a second thought, I just reached down and lifted my dad, who was asleep in bed, and started walking towards the exit. By now, the doctors and nurses were running here and there shouting orders. I saw some patients gallantly helping others and taking them towards the exits. We started to file out. We were on the first floor and the fire seemed to have started on the second floor. We had to hurry. I held my father close to me. He was awake and realizing what happened, he smiled at me weakly. I returned the smile reassuringly. As we reached the exit, I heard the welcome sound of the fire brigade sirens. Soon a burly fireman walked up and with crisp instructions had all of us moving as one body down the stairs. Once down, I saw my mother crying and pushing the police away in her efforts to enter the hospital. I called out to her, and the moment she saw me, the sorrow that creased her lovely face turned to that of sheer joy. An attendant of an ambulance, standing close by, motioned to me, and I helped my father onto a stretcher and into the ambulance. He was going to be taken to another hospital. My mum was a bundle of nerves. When the ambulance moved off, she just leaned against me and sobbed and sobbed. I held her tightly to me and consoled her as best as I could. We then hired a taxi and followed the ambulance, and throughout the journey, we were only hoping that all would be well. So this is a model of narrative writing. There is one direct speech. There are a lot of imageries created using word pictures, a beautiful introduction, okay, and getting into the emotion. My mother sobbed and sobbed, and the mother is beautiful, that comes across, because she's talking about her beautiful face, all right, without telling or getting into the detailing. All the details surface when I read. That should be what the aim of good composition. That should be the aim of any good composition, that I don't give out all the details, but despite that, all the details surface on its own through the lines which are expressed. All of you understood this so far? So now for homework, you can start, write a story with the following beginning: it was a beautiful day. Or narrate and, why or? Now this is practice time. So and, narrate an incident with the following ending. And we promised never to repeat the mistake again. Okay, storytelling, remember children, is the most powerful way to put ideas into the world. So share your stories, read and grow. Thank you so much. Renu ma'am, over to you.
Yes. There's a question. There's only one question from Veda.
Yes,
He's
Vedant.
saying, ma'am, instead of writing the setup of the story at the beginning, can we start with suspense and
Ah,
then state how the situation of suspense arises? It can
uh,
make the story more interesting, like what happens in the film.
you can, Vedant, but what happens is, as I told you, the first impression matters. Okay, I am reading so many papers. All right, so this is definitely a way of standing out. That is also a style of writing, where you start with the suspense and then you go down to setting. That is definitely a way of writing. You should try it, Vedant. It is a good idea. Usually, the setting is through suspense also you can actually convey the setting. So you try that today. What you will do is you will try to create a suspense. At the same time, Vedant, you will also try to unfold the setting. So we are doing both. Okay. Otherwise, you can just start with the suspense, then quickly to the take the readers through the setting, and then get back to your formal writing. Varinder Kaur has some message now.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
questions.
thank you. I would like to thank Varinder Kaur. She's saying that I have boosted her with my words. Varinder, that is the idea, beta. I just want to ensure that you all write creatively, because I told you, creative writing is actually, it's actually a source of strength. It is a great pastime. So all of us should write, if not for exam, just for personal growth.
Renita ma'am, any question from the YouTube?
Hello?
Spence, your
Yeah, no, ma'am, I couldn't see any question right now. Actually,
anything from
people,
the Zoom?
lots of,
Yeah,
yeah,
Renita.
ma'am, lots of appreciation for her. Many people are appreciating her.
So anyone wants to ask any question? Ma'am has answered all the questions.
Yeah, in fact, we were discussing yesterday. So I told madam that I will be answering all the questions through the slide. There will be no questions left. So we will wrap up by 6:50.
Okay, so how many words they are supposed to write?
100 words, ma'am. They're supposed to write 100 words. So one full side of a full scape of a board, answer paper. And I tell my children that if you want 1/4 of the next page also, you can go, provided you are leaving a margin. Provided you are leaving a margin.
And what's the marking scheme?
The marking scheme I already shared, madam. You want me to go back to the presentation?
Because
Basically,
no, one doubt was there
yeah,
for the YouTube.
I will share the screen again. So the marking scheme is something like this. First, the logical, the main idea, is to ensure that there is a logical flow. And so the language use, the grammar, the logical flow, title, everything you will find that, there are marks for that. I'll just, so basically it is the same. I will not go back to the slide now.
Mhm.
First, the language used, grammar, vocabulary, logical flow, conclusion, and
And the
title.
title.
Yeah. So, and it basically, see, we will not sit and dissect each of these. The overall impact is what matters. And the overall impact, children, comes across only when you practice and write beautiful stories. If your story is beautiful, I will not sit and analyze every line and every word. When you read a story, you like it or you don't like it. That's about it. Yeah. Any
What's
other
the
questions?
time limit for writing a story?
Yeah, time limit, as I told you, for any writing skill should be 10 minutes. But here in this case, because you have to think about the plot,
Achha.
keep some 12 minutes for this particular thing. 2 minutes you use to keep, to bring your plot together. In your mind, you should have that structure. How am I going to go about? All right. Any other questions, students?
No questions as such.
Okay, thank you so much. I thank you once again, Renu Dotra ma'am. This is our last session. Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity to interact with
This is
so
the
many of
last
them.
session for HL.
HL.
Maybe you'll come back to LL.
Yeah, but with the HL students. So I thank all the people for all their positive feedback. It has been a privilege to talk to all of you, share whatever little I know with each one of you. I love you all my blessings and best wishes. So till we meet again, take care and stay safe.
One minute, please. Ma'am. I
Yeah.
request Renita ma'am to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Renu ma'am, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to express my gratitude to all our helping hands who made this webinar series a success. I begin with a beautiful quote. The vibration of gratitude attracts more positive things into your life. Good evening, everyone. Let me commence my list of gratitude with today's showstopper for Learn from Home webinar series, Mrs. Vinita Nair, for sparing her valuable time and providing us with an informative and engaging presentation on the topic story writing and narration of an incident. Ma'am, we thank you for sharing with us your profound knowledge that would be of immense help for our students. We assure you the implication and execution of the same by our students. It's well said, hands, those help, are the hands that are blessed. We appreciate the constant technical support and guidance given by Mr. Nadeem Khan to MNET. Now it's time to appreciate the efforts of a noble soul who has made the dream of MNET come to reality through her diligent efforts. Yes, you got that right. None other than the host and convener, Mrs. Renu Dhotri, for organizing this webinar series of Learn from Home through the platform of MNET. Ma'am, these words of gratitude are mere words. Our feelings are more intense to express your hard efforts that you have taken to enable our students to stay updated and gain knowledge. I also extend my gratitude to the expertise team who made this webinar series a grand success. Finally, a huge thanks to all our participants for their active participation till date. We look forward to such enthusiasm and support even in the future. Let's remember, this web series, Learn from Home, is not the end, but a beginning of a bright future. Good luck and God bless you all. Have a great evening. Now, Renu ma'am, I request you to give the further instruction. Thank you so much.
I just have a small thank you note. Now, on behalf of MNET Mumbai Network of English Teachers, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to all the speakers for conducting such an engaging and thought-provoking sessions in the Learn from Home series. The sessions were exceptionally rich in terms of content and presentation. They were full of relevant examples and interesting activities. We are sure that the students would have enjoyed the enlightening and enliving sessions on activity sheet. We are thankful to all the speakers and the students. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to INET Executive Committee, including Dr. Amol Padwar, the Secretary, Dr. Vivek Joshi, the President, Mrs. Padmini Barua, Mr. Krishna Dixit, and also INET Connect project leaders, Mr. Milind Mane and Mr. Nadeem Khan. I am very much thankful to Mr. Nadeem for providing strong technical support. Without his help, the webinar series wouldn't have been possible. MNET has been striving to facilitate teachers of English to update themselves through a series of webinars on diverse themes. Your unstinting support and involvement in each event is a real strength of our character. And very soon we will begin the activity sheet for other medium other than English. So subscribe and like the channel and be tuned. And thank you, Veda ma'am. This is my personal thank to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Renita ma'am, Alfia Alamdar, and Aditi Shah for volunteering their beautiful introductions and vote of thanks. And lastly, thank you
you,
all
ma'am.
esteemed participants, students for making the webinar series successful. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
So I
you.
end my session over here.